partnered with NAMI Orange and NAMI Sussex. Both of these organizations assist with access to services and treatment, supports awareness and research, advocates for legislation and the rights of people with mental illness. In addition, they educate and provide supports to the family members and loved ones who care for them. Team Up for Hope would like to thank you for joining us this evening for our webinar dealing with pandemic and its effects. This evening, our presenters will be addressing the impact of the pandemic on school-age children and teens. Our panelists are Ronald Handelman, Ph.D., school psychologist, North Rockland Central School District, Jessica M. Large, MA, Ed.S, LPC, ACS Center for Evaluation and Counseling, and Holly Dinneny, Community Engagement and Outreach Coordinator, Family Partners of Morris and Sussex Counties, a family support organization. They will all be discussing challenges faced by students and their families during this very stressful time and offer strategies and actions that families and individuals can use. There will be a Q&A period following every speaker's presentation. And now, Tiffany, the floor is yours.
Hello. Normally I add a little of my own personality into these webinars and tell some jokes, but I think based on the fact that it's such a serious topic, I need to hold back a little bit. And after looking at the credentials of these fabulous people, there's no way I can memorize all of this. So I'm going to be a little dry because I don't want to make light of any of these people's backgrounds. So I'm going to tell you about Ron. Ron has been a New York State school psychologist for 28 years, and it is a New Jersey licensed psychologist since 1999. He received his doctorate in educational psychology from the City University of New York and his school psychology certification from Queen College. He grew up in Jamaica, Queens, and is an undergraduate at Cornell University. He studied secondary science education, specifically biology and earth science, in addition to working for the North Rockland Central School District, performing psychological assessments, counseling, teacher and parent consultations, planning individual education programs, and crisis intervention. Now you guys know why I couldn't memorize all that. He lives in Montclair, New Jersey. He has 3 adult, well, grown daughters. He spends his spare time, looks like he's a nature lover. He is a camper. He likes the great outdoors, skiing, softball, tennis, throwing around a Frisbee. He spends his summers at Willow Lake Day Camp in Lake Hopatcong. Is that how you say it? Hopatcong, New Jersey. He's a unit leader and has been a leader in camping since becoming a counselor in 1980 at Camp Hadar in Clinton, Connecticut, and has taught graduate classes in research methods, special ed, and classroom management through City College, College of New Rochelle, and Queens College. So I'd like to welcome Ron and have him start off by answering the question. Ron, you deal with children on a daily basis. Tell us what we can do to help.
Well, thank you. That's too much credentials. I work doing a lot of private counseling and a lot in the high school where I am. And what I'm finding is that there's going to be a wide range of how people are handling things now. Everybody's got, and this is, you say, what can we do to help? The thing is to recognize that everybody has responsibilities and pressure. Everybody is handling their pressure, and nobody's pressure is to be diminished or put down or kind of poo-pooed. We all have to kind of acknowledge that everybody's having a different time and a bit of a rough time. That being said, a lot of what I've been doing is trying to get kids back on track because there's a certain percentage of people that have not been doing well in school. They kind of shut down. There's a certain percentage. I was asking a lot of teachers the other day, like how many people are completely shut down? How many people are doing their work? How many people are doing better at home? And we also have to acknowledge that within the household, people are irritable, people are touchy and crabby and impatient, and a lot of things are going on. So what can we do? We can have the awareness and consideration for the other family members when we're just trying to go about our day. So we don't start conversations with coming into the house from wherever we are and then screaming and yelling at them, saying things like, who put all these shoes all over the floor? Or, how come these coats aren't hung up? Or why is the dishwasher not unloaded? We should come in the house, we should take a moment, be calm, scan the situation, and be able to see where other people are at. Take just a moment before we address all the issues that are in the house. So what I've been doing is, with a lot of kids, is I'm helping people create a organized schedule at home. And that's one of the slides that I'm going to talk about a little bit, is how to be organized. And the other thing is how to not let things crescendo or grow and escalate in the house. So like when you come in and the first thing you do, and if you're the parent, let's say you're the dad, and you come in and you immediately just scan the situation and scream at everybody, then everybody is immediately walking on eggshells. Everybody is worried about the door slamming outside. They're worried about your reaction, and then they defend. So what happens in households is somebody says something because they're just in their mood. The next person defends, says something that they're supposed to do. That person then defends against the defense, and it just keeps going up and up and up. And what I've been talking to people about is, in counseling and at the school, is to try to have that consideration, flexibility. Self-observation has been the key that we've been working on. Approach things from a let's get healthy manner rather than a we're all insane in this household manner. So that's what I've been doing. I'm going to talk a little bit after in the next slide about what to do when there's a potential for escalations. But the first slide is really about kids in school that aren't doing well, that are stuck at home, teenagers, and how are they going to create a better schedule for themselves. And the trick for creating the better schedule, before you even start your to-do list, or before you even look at time and timers or alerts on your phone and things like that, is to keep in mind that throughout the day, you want to make sure you incorporate different activities into the day so that there's this growth in the family. Everybody has like a collective anxiety, but you want to grow through all of this. So you're going to do something educational, like your schoolwork and the things that you're supposed to be doing, or you're learning, your journaling, or whatever. You're going to do something physical so that you're not falling apart and doing poorly. So that's walking, running, biking, yoga, stretching, whatever it could be. In the beginning of the pandemic, people were doing gardening. The next thing is something food and nutrition related, and that could be planning a meal, cooking a meal, cleaning up after the meal, eating the meal, but something that has to do with a improvement of nutrition and eating, because when you've eaten well, you feel better. When you are healthy physically, you're going to do better. Next, something creative, and I always call it something musical or art, playing an instrument, singing, sharing a new kind of music with somebody, practicing your instrument, drawing something creative and artistic, and then something family related. And I always tell kids, make sure you have them in your day scheduled to do all these things, but you're allowed to overlap. So if you actually cook a meal with your mom or with your dad, or if you go for a bike ride with your sister or your mother, you're doing something family and physical, or you're doing the cooking and the nutrition and the family thing. If you're sharing music and then talking about it or art with your family member, you're overlapping. So it's important to do all those. And then in terms of education, some kids are completely shutting down. I'm finding that if you tell people that the day is long and that you can fill the entire day, actually put it on the schedule. And if you have an ADHD kid, or if you have somebody who is difficult with time, don't schedule a 2-hour time block to finish a science project or a problem set for math or something. You do 30 to 40 minutes on, then the alert rings, and then you take a 10-minute break. And then if you want to play game, you want to do a little Fortnite or something, you say, I'm going to play Fortnite for 45 minutes, and then the timer rings, and then you're going to do something else. And then you take a break and you can go back to it later. But I like the fact when you allot certain periods of time. You're not likely to finish something, buy something, do something if you say, oh, I got to do it later. But if you put it on a schedule and say at 11 o'clock, I'm going to mow the lawn or something like that, then you're more likely to do it. If you set a timer on your phone and it rings right before, you're like 90% more likely to get it done. There's another part, before we go into the scheduling part, which I have in front of you now, is I tell families to leave your door open more, to be more available to people, to, if somebody wants to talk to you, just don't shoo them away. That's when things start to escalate. Know your own moods and responses and how you are. This is what's happening in all the houses. People come in and be like, get out of here. And the brothers and the sisters just immediately go to a fight. Then they're bickering, and then the parent or the guardian yells at them. Now everybody's mad at everybody. One of the things is less screen time and phone time, setting the timers, planning a bedtime, waking up early, all that other stuff. And then if you just show the next slide, there's a little bit of a sample of what a day could look like. I'm not going to go through all of them, but if you can see, the day is long. And if you look at some of the things on it, it's not all work. You're not working and cooking and fussing and being miserable all day, nor are you playing Call of Duty all day, okay? You're doing a variety of things, and if you look, there's even game time in there. So that's the schedule part. The other slide that I'm going to talk about a little bit is it's called a system called the break system that I've been working with kids for many years on. I used to have these groups of 10 and 11-year-old kids, and we used to talk about, most of them were ADHD and had odd behaviors or interesting behaviors, or they're on the spectrum, or they had different things going on. So we talked about what happens when you start to crescendo, when you start to escalate, when you have each part of the family defending against each other. And what happens is you might be arguing about something that doesn't need to be argued about, or you said something that you didn't really mean, and then it's like a snowball or a spiral that's going down. And what you ask people to do, BREAKS is an acronym. I'm not really crazy about using acronyms about everything, but this kind of is a good acronym because breaks, if you think about it, if you're getting out of control, or you're about to be in a fight on the schoolyard, or you're going to argue with the person at work who is annoying at work, or they took your stuff out of the refrigerator and you're about to lose your cool, so think of slamming on the brakes, like, and I'm going to stop. But really what it means is you're going to do something. Everything, including reduction of anxiety, in terms of working on depression, in terms of reducing escalations of fighting, requires that you do something. You perform a positive, productive action. In this is just a few ideas, and you don't have to do all 6 things on the break system, but it is a good idea to at least do something. Sometimes it's just start breathing, do something mindful. I have 5 seconds in, silently, hold for 3, and then out for 5. If you need another 13 seconds, you do it again. But basically, if you're concentrating on your breathing, then you're not strangling your brother. Next, if you're escalating, people lean forward. They lift their arm. They get into a posture of, I'm angry at you. So I tell people, relax your shoulders. Because literally, if you put your shoulders back and you relax a little bit, you're taking yourself out of a fighting posture and you're putting yourself into, all right, we can all be a little bit calm here. So be mindful and watch your own posture. This is not on the sheet, but if you've ever noticed when people whining, your voice goes higher, your chin goes higher. And I work in this camp in the summer, and you can always tell when somebody's going to whine because their chin goes to the sky. Your posture and your face matters a lot. Try whining without lifting your neck. I don't want to go to the webinar. Anyway, next is the A, and you make a decision. You're going to stick around and handle this discussion, or maybe it's better for me to get away. And I tell people, if you've said something you don't want to say, or somebody's speaking to you in a way that you can't handle right now, or you don't want to handle right now, or you're in a fight and they're just pushing, and you want to get away, one thing you can do is just take a little break from the thing and say, I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta pee. That's a great way. It's like a boxer's bell. Ding, 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 ding. And the boxers go, or the UFC goes to their assorted corners, and then they re-strategize and they come back and they're smarter. And that's what it's okay to do. It's okay to make a determination to, I'm not gonna do this right now. I'm gonna get away. But if you're going to stick around, try to do it with some consideration and some listening, and not putting down the other person's opinion. If you want to go to the next slide, it continues. The next thing you do is knowledge. What is really the problem? So if you're that person who comes in like gangbusters and walks into the house and immediately starts yelling at everybody in the family, know that the problem is not necessarily the messy house, though it could be, but sometimes you're hungry. Sometimes there's traffic. Sometimes you're thirsty. Sometimes you have to go to the bathroom. Take care of what you need to first, and then know that maybe the other person had a rough day too. That's what I was talking about before. We all have our stress. It's important to kind of know what the other person went through. So before you yell at everybody, maybe go over to somebody in the house and put your stuff down, grab a little snack. Don't worry about the shoes in front of the house or the dishwasher or the food on the counter, and just say, how was your day? What's up? How are you? Ask them a question, and then you get the lay of the land. This is self-observation and other people observation. It's scanning. And I think a lot of this comes down to consideration and scanning and problem solving and handling it with a positive manner. The next thing, you're going to explore your options. That's straight out of cognitive behavioral therapy. If I do this, it'll lead to this feeling, and then it'll lead to that behavior. If I do this, it'll lead to that feeling, and then other consequences. But if I do this, maybe something else will happen. It's taking an antecedent and seeing all the possible choices that you have of what you could do and what they could lead to. Now, this is hard to do spur of the moment when you're angry, but if you explore even just one option, this or this, it's like a choice, this door or that door. People, and that's what I try to work with kids on, is practicing slowing down and just not saying the first thing that comes out of your mouth, which is usually going to make the other person try to defend. And then the last thing on the list is stay calm enough in order to do the options you choose. So that's just like a little sheet. It'll be on here. You can take a look at it. It's sort of something fun. Other things that I've worked on is talking to people about the whole pursuer-distancer effect. I won't go too much into that because I'm running out of time here a little bit, and I want other people to be able to speak. And that, in a sense, I just wanted to sort of draw it out for you, is every single argument, or almost every argument, usually has some person who's the chaser and the other person who's the distancer. So the way it looks like is something like this. I'm going to draw it here. Okay, you have a person who is the pursuer or the chaser, and then you have the other person who's the distancer. And if this happens to be the parent who's like, how was your day? I don't want to talk about it. Tell me about your day. I really don't want to talk about it. And the more vehemently they pursue, the more vehemently they run away. And then what happens is the pursuer just keeps pushing until they're screaming, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you. They lock themselves in the bathroom. They're banging on the door. Get out here, until nothing good can come from this. I want people to know about this pursuer-distancer effect, pursuer-distancer. And then what I tell people is once they understand it, what happens is the pursuer, you try to get them not to pursue so angrily. They can ask a nice question. And then the distancer can maybe turn around and say, oh, okay, you know what? I'll talk to you. Or you get the pursuer to walk away, and then maybe the distancer will come back later and talk to them. If you recognize the dynamic and you have a little consideration for your family member, and you remember that these are the people I like, these are the people I care about, these are the people who are going to take care of me, that helps. So I talk about harmony. I talk about family consideration. I think that that's the essence of what we need to remember when we're in the house, to bring some calm and bring some harmony. And there's some little tricks along the way, but I'm sure other people are going to talk about good stuff too. So if you have any questions, you can let me know.
Thank you so much, Ron. You hit a couple soft spots with me, but I'll do that at the end. We do have a question from one of our people here. Should I just read the question?
Yeah.
So this question comes from Susan Wynn. She would like to know if you have any suggestions for helping a child who has school anxiety, example, afraid to go to school, socialize, etc.
Right. So anxiety is rampant, and I think people have like I've said this before. There's a collective anxiety in the world. It happened all during the elections. It happened all during anything that's happening in the news, and then the uncertainty breeds anxiety. So anybody who has uncertainty in their life, which is everybody, has more anxiety. People have different levels of anxiety about, let's say, COVID, specifically about going to the school. I'm too nervous to go. I'm going to get sick. My grandma is going to die. And this is a very real thing. What I think people got to do is respect people's level of anxiety regarding COVID, no matter what. Everybody has a certain, I've been calling it COVID intensity. Some people are very COVID intensive. Some people are not. Some people are very liberal. Some people are not, regarding masks and things like that. Anything goes because that's what they're feeling. But if a kid is afraid to go to school, we respect that. If the kid is afraid and having anxiety about performing, about being on camera, what we do is we work with them on generalized anxiety reduction, about showing what skills, talents, things that they can do, and strengths that they have, building on their strengths, talking to them that they have strengths, and then incrementally, maybe you show the top of your head, maybe you show partially in the screen, maybe you just show a little bit. And then when the world didn't come to a screeching halt, you build on it and show that you have some strength. It worked before, it could work again. And then about returning to school, you talk to them about the reality. The other people aren't really making fun of you or being angry at you or miserable or going to give you a hard time. They're just people with anxiety and insecurities themselves. So we point out to people that everybody else is having stuff. There's that consideration and the empathy for others. And then they go to school and realize that everybody else around them has that insecurity and difficulty too. And then if somebody says something to you, like you were in the hospital, you've been away, how you been? We haven't seen you in a while. And they're anxious about returning to school. We let them know that this is a 10 to 30 second conversation. And then you train them and talk to them and practice with them about what you can say to a person. Yeah, I was away for a while. I was dealing with some stuff, but I'm doing better now. Thanks for asking. And if they push a little bit more, you just say, no, I'd rather not talk about it, but really I appreciate it. I'll talk to you another time. After the first 10, 15 seconds, that's it. And if you come the next day, they've forgotten about it because everybody's dealing with their own issues and most people are mostly self-centered anyway. So they're not going to ask about you. And then once you practice it out and play it out in the office, they become a little bit less anxious about returning to school. But kids are plagued by anxiety about, am I going to fail? Am I going to do poorly? That's really something that they got to work with somebody on gaining the confidence.
Ron, you are the man. Thank you so much. Anybody else who has a question, we need to try to stick closer to our schedule. We'll have a chance at the end to take questions for anybody who feels left out, but we're going to move on to our next awesome speaker, Jessica Large.
Thank you.
Jessica is, thank you so much, Ron. Jessica is both a licensed professional counselor and an approved clinical supervisor in the state of New Jersey. She graduated from Seton Hall University with a Master's of Arts degree in counseling and psychological studies and an educational specialist degree in mental health counseling. Jessica has extensive education, training, and experience in the areas of child abuse, has extensive education in trauma, severe and persistent mental illness, co-occurring disorders, and forensic assessments. Wow, I can't even say your credentials. I'm glad I didn't attempt to memorize these. Jessica has been approved by the Center for Evaluation and Counseling since 2010. She conducts forensic evaluations and provides treatment for children and families who are involved in Child Protective Services system. She is also the coordinator for outpatient services for CEC, has also been qualified as an expert in the areas of child abuse and neglect, risk assessments, and child sexual abuse by the New Jersey Family Court in various counties. She completed the Evidence-Based Assessment Training Project and has been trained and certified in the Strengths and Need Assessments through the Children's System of Care in New Jersey. She has also been trained in the Nurtured Heart Approach and has been certified in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. In addition, she is a member of the American Professional Society of Abuse of Children and serves on 2 different policy committees. She's also a member of the New Jersey Counseling Association and has been a member of the Sussex County Traumatic Loss Coalition since 2017. And in 2019, she became the coordinator for TLC in Sussex County. Outside of work, if she has one spare second left after all that, she enjoys cooking, gardening, reading, and glamping. So Jessica, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank
your
you.
question that we're going to start you off with is, please tell us your insights about recognizing depression in our children.
Okay. So thank you for that very nice introduction. That made me tired listening to it, but I appreciate that. So part of what I do in my role with the Traumatic Loss Coalition, as well as CEC, is kind of handle the tough questions and deal with a lot of questions from parents and our communities. So I'm going to jump right into what does depression look like in my child, or maybe in a student or somebody in our community. So really what that can look like can vary. It can vary child to child. It can vary day to day. And a lot of these things that you'll see here are things that might also be typical for a child. So we're looking at a depressed mood, change in any sort of eating, sleeping, hygiene, general interest, things of that nature, like a marked change in behavior, fatigue, loss of energy, and also some difficulty with concentration. And of course, if a child is expressing that they're experiencing any thoughts of death, of suicide, or some self-injurious behavior. So these are all some common symptoms of depression that do, require a formal diagnosis from a trained professional, but these are some kind of warning signs that some parents can look out for. So next, I'm just going to go ahead and share this a little bit better from where we're at here. So that's depression, and then here's anxiety, and you could see there's a lot of overlapping symptoms. Restlessness again, poor sleep, trouble concentrating, physical complaints, like sometimes, kind of like the question we were hearing before about what if my child doesn't want to go to school? Maybe that starts out as, I have a headache, my stomach hurts today, like, I'm tired, I didn't sleep. Sometimes anxiety and even depression can kind of start out looking like that. Shaking, some muscle tension, it could be that persistent worry, all of those what ifs going around in their head. And this is for adults too. And also sometimes it's just a sudden fear. And again, like kind of to Ron's point, there's that different level of intensity when it comes to COVID specifically right now in the pandemic, and that fear of what's going to happen when we go back. I know a lot of schools are talking about, if they're not already, kind of making that push to go back. So anxiety is definitely looking different. It is also very widespread. It is something that we're seeing a big increase in. So there's also many different types of anxiety. There is general anxiety disorder, there's panic, separation anxiety, very common in our younger children, specific phobias, and social anxiety. So just trying to keep track of time. So I don't wanna skip over this. This is a tough topic. I just wanna make sure that people know that if you are triggered or upset by anything in this conversation, to make sure you're doing that scan of yourself and taking care of yourself as we kind of move into the topic of suicide. Very often, I'm asked, how do I even talk to my kid or kids or my friends, my kids' friends about suicide? And really, so important to remember that just by asking somebody about suicide is not going to put that idea in their head. And in fact, this could be the one thing that kind of changes the course for them, is by somebody being very honest and upfront and asking them outright about suicide. So some tips on how you can do that. If you suspect that somebody you love or your child is having some thoughts of suicide, to be prepared. Know what you can handle. Know if you're ready to hear the answer. And also be prepared that if you're not, that's okay. And to maybe call on somebody else to have that conversation. So when you are having the conversation, just make it very age appropriate. Start with, are you okay? Just kind of check in. Be present, not looking down at your phone or looking at your computer screen, the TV. Really be there in the moment, and not using any judgmental, kind of responses, which can be difficult. It could be very kind of gut reaction to be like, you wouldn't really do that, right? And you could see that would kind of immediately put off whoever we're talking to be like, oh yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. And you might miss an opportunity. Open-ended questions, always asking open-ended questions. This is also a great way to kind of talk around the dinner table, right? Like asking open-ended questions about anything that can't really be answered with a yes or no response. Trying to avoid a quick fix. Oftentimes, if we're asking somebody if they're thinking of suicide, they don't feel that there is a quick fix to that. So just being there, listening to them, and being present, and validating their feelings, hearing what they're saying, and again, not looking to fix the problem, but just be there for them and be a source of support. And being honest. It's very easy as parents, as educators, as providers, to sometimes want to promise to change the world for them, right? Like you want to promise that you're going to be okay, promise that that will never happen again, and those are promises that we might not be able to keep. So a lot of people also want to know, well, what should I look for? Like what makes one person more prone to maybe having some suicidal thoughts or actions than another? So some common risk factors, and these are not all inclusive, would be that there is a diagnosis of a mental health issue, past suicide attempts, history of trauma and or abuse would increase that risk factor, as well as if a child is experiencing bullying. And again, some warning signs and things to look at where you might want to ask a couple more questions of your child would be that they're having some self-injury. And self-injury does not mean in all cases that your child is suicidal. If they are expressing any thoughts of hopelessness, dramatic changes in mood and behavior, and this is common through all depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts or actions, is it's a dramatic change in their behavior. So the depression and anxiety, you might just have a child who doesn't really eat that much or is just generally kind of tired and maybe keeps to themselves. If that's their baseline and you've checked in with them, that doesn't necessarily mean they're depressed or anxious. It's a dramatic change, a noticeable change. And often that starts at school, where maybe you see a teacher or guidance counselor kind of picks up on something. So, I know in our practice, we are definitely seeing as children are returning to some sense of this new normal and with different sets of eyes on them, we are definitely seeing an increase in people noticing that things are a little different. And also risky behaviors. So suicide, substance abuse, looking for lethal means. If you're, checking their Google searches and you're seeing something that's concerning, that's also a warning sign. And again, if your child is socially withdrawn when they're normally very outgoing. So the good thing is that in many cases, there are protective factors. There are things that we can instill in our children and in our families that help to kind of buffer against all of the stresses that they're feeling and they're going to experience. And we're going to talk about resiliency in a little bit as well. So for children who are, adept with problem solving and conflict resolution, that's a protective factor when it comes to suicide. Positive coping skills, where they have, they could say good things about themselves. That's hard for adults to do, but it's a great opportunity to model for our kids. Exercise. We can, just kind of like in Ron's in that schedule, exercise is so important. When you're doing good things, you feel good. Hobbies, interests, sports, and also the ability to relax and to kind of shut down and to be able to kind of get there on their own and regulate. And talking about feelings and emotions. Sometimes you would be surprised at the ages of kids and even sometimes adults who have a hard time talking about and naming their emotions and their feelings. So these things, when they're there, are kind of an extra layer of protection against suicidal thoughts and actions. And again, support, having a nice, strong support system, whether that's family, friends, coaches, parents of friends, faith-based support, different organizations, and also having those positive school experiences and relationships. So what can we do, right? How can we help our kids? How can we, make sure they're okay, right? And that's, we all want that. We all want that for our communities. So really that starts with our own behavior. Model healthy habits, model healthy mental health, and mental health is health. And talking about, if you're having a bad day and maybe what you do, maybe, what, I had a really stressful day today. I'm going to go for a walk. You want to come with me? Sometimes it helps me. It helps me to kind of walk it off. It's going to be spring eventually. So, we can get back outside and, get that movement going again. And also checking in regularly. Are you okay? How was your day? And if there is a history of mental health issues, to really monitor that closely and look for supports, professional supports where you can. And also really important and kind of hard in these, virtual days right now is know their friends and know that, know the parents of the friends when you can. So a common question, what if they won't talk to me, right? So what if my kid won't talk to me about how they're feeling and won't tell me if there's a problem? So you can always call crisis hotlines, psychiatric emergency rooms if you feel that the situation rises. And even if you don't, you can call, you could talk to them and get some support. And I know after this, we're going to get a whole bunch more support from Holly. So they're really important things to kind of take note of and, pay attention to who all the players are so that you can get the answers that you need. And if you start a conversation that your child is really not into, doesn't want to talk to you, but something's going on, like your gut is telling you, leave it open. Don't shut it down just because they don't talk to you in that moment. Leave that as an open door. And also, sometimes it's when you least expect it. Like, I like to think of this next one as you want to sit down across from them and have this serious conversation. And sometimes that face-to-face thing just isn't going to work. But when you're side by side, taking that walk, driving in the car, that's when these things come up, and be ready to hear them. And again, I said this before, is that you might not be their person, right? And you need to make sure that your child has a trusted adult that they can talk to. And again, that could be a coach, that could be a Cub Scout leader, that could be a teacher, that could be a custodian. It could be anybody, but just making sure that they do have somebody. So do's and don'ts, you want to make sure that you're staying calm, being direct. If you are concerned that there is a risk that your child may attempt suicide, is to try to remove any unsafe objects from the home or lock them up in a safe. The don'ts: don't pass judgment. Don't leave them alone if you are really concerned. Don't ignore it, and don't make any promises that you might not be able to keep. So this has been a very popular topic lately, how to find help, right? It's kind of hard. There's a whole sea of professionals out there with a lot of letters and a lot of credentials, and it could be really tricky to kind of navigate that whole system. So, you can do this from word of mouth, talking, on social media, different parenting groups, different community groups. It could be friends. It could be at a support group where you kind of hear somebody talk about something, you get that provider's contact information. Schools are also a fantastic source. A lot of school counselors and guidance counselors, they have some resources. They have referrals for you. And also, these last two are kind of like, they're kind of like yellow pages for therapists, but they have, Psychology Today and Therapy, the Network Therapy has pictures, they have bios, they have a list of all of the provider specialties that you can look at as well. And you can even search by specific issue that you're looking to address. And when you do call and you're ready to call that therapist and you're trying to make an appointment, to be prepared with your benefit information, find out, if you're looking for a specific specialty, see if that provider has that. And, you might be asked, sometimes there's a lot of wait lists. So know that you might be asked if you want to see an intern, do you want to see an associate counselor? And really, the ball is in your court, and it's okay to ask as many questions, as you need to get the right therapy for your child. So here's just a couple different ways that you can help cultivate that resiliency in your child. Just going to highlight a couple of them. Teaching your child self-care is so important. And by doing that, you're going to also take care of yourself. So that's going for that walk, going, for the spa day when you want to or when you need to, and eating and cooking healthy meals. And also really keeping things in perspective, maintain a hopeful outlook, and be willing to accept any changes. So here is just some references that I will, have available for everybody if you wanted to get some more information. And that is all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
I do have some questions
Okay.
for you quickly. Let me pull this up. Where are we? Jessica, many parents are hesitant about having medication prescribed for their child's depression or anxiety.
Yeah. Many parents are, hesitant to do that. And, there's nothing wrong with going to a doctor and kind of talking it out. Just because you go see a doctor or even a prescriber doesn't always mean you're going to walk away with a prescription. I think the most important step is making that call and getting somebody to talk to, and, depression or anxiety doesn't always have to be treated with medication. You can do that through a therapist as well.
She got to the
And
question, I just didn't get to it right, but you addressed it. The question specifically was, what would you tell parents who have been
Yep.
told their child should be on medication? So you
yeah,
addressed that.
yeah, I think that it's not, I think that we need to trust our professionals, and talk it out and ask questions.
Okay. Wow, you guys are like little libraries of information. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
I can't believe that I'm getting as much out of this as I am, because I thought this was all geared to school age, younger children. And I have 3 college kids, and I'm going to walk away tonight with a lot of learning going on that I could take to my own house. So Karen, did you want to introduce our last speaker?
Absolutely. So our last speaker is Holly Dinneny. She is a community engagement and outreach coordinator for family partners of Morris and Sussex counties. She's a certified support partner and certified nurtured heart trainer and coach. Holly is a high energy, experienced professional with a passion for facilitating connections between people, resources, and unrealized potential. She's a big proponent on focusing on what we have in common versus how we are different, and seeks to help minimize and eliminate the isolation that comes from loving a family member with mental health, emotional, learning, or developmental challenges. In her words, we each have our own journey, but there's no reason we need to do it alone. With a background in not-for-profit management, public relations, support group facilitation, and lived experience loving individuals challenged in a mental health and learning differences, Holly embraces the FPMS mission that is centered on providing support, education, and hope to families navigating difficult times. One of Holly's favorite quotes is, "One day, you will tell you the story of how you've overcome what you are going through now, and it will become part of someone else's survival guide," which is actually one of my favorite sayings. Holly remains forever grateful to the people in her life who have walked with her on her own journey, supporting her and helping her feel not so alone while learning how to grow and mature as a parent. It is only natural to want to turn to and help others do the same. Holly, please tell us about the family partners and what resources are available for families in need.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. I'm being mindful of the time. I know we've had a lot of information tonight. One thing they did mention or failed to mention on my introduction is the letters after my name are MOM. It's very impressive. But I just, in all seriousness, we've heard from some very schooled professional folks on the field of mental health. And I just want to tell you that we all have a lot of resources available to us right now in our communities, in our neighborhoods, and in our families that we just may not realize that are already there. So that's the really good news, is that you need to learn how to ask and how to look for the supports that are already existing in your community. And family partners, Andy, if you want to throw up, I don't have a very elaborate slideshow, but Andy, if you want to throw up, the Family Partners of Morris and Sussex County is the name of my organization. We are one of 15 family support organizations in the state of New Jersey. We are really super lucky in New Jersey that when a child is identified as having a challenge, and that can be, next slide, please, that can be mental health, that can be behavioral health, that can be substance misuse, challenges with the juvenile justice system. It can be a whole host of things. When a child between the ages of 3 and 21 is identified as having some of these challenges, a whole team of people are brought to the table to come up with a plan on how to help this child and how to support this family. Next slide, please. So there's a team of experts that come to the table, many of whom my sister organization, they're called Caring Partners. It's a care management organization, and they bring to the table all the people in the white jackets with all the letters after their names that come and offer support for that child, be it therapy, be it a counselor, whatever it is that they need in that regard. And what a family support organization does is we come to the table for the parent. Next slide, please. Because sometimes what happens is the parents are overwhelmed. The parents are tired, they're frustrated, they're frazzled. Andy, actually skip ahead one slide, please. Basically, we're there to help the family, the caregiver know what their options are, to maybe understand a little bit better what's happening. If there's a condition, what are the rights of the student? What are the rights of the parents? So we are there to help them understand what's happening. We believe in giving them support. We believe in educating them and in helping them learn how to advocate for themselves. Next slide, please. Family partners, we offer a range of programs. We have educational programs, which is, for instance, we do a weekly lunch and learn program that we have experts come in who talk on services that are available, who talk on conditions and understanding, who talk on support options. We have support groups, which is what I'm going to talk a lot about tonight. And we also offer community education. All of our educational programming and all of our support groups are open to the public. And we have what we call a warm line, which is instead of a hotline, it's a warm line. If you have a question, if you have a challenge, if you're not sure who to ask, if you're not sure whether you should be concerned, call us and we'll help you out. Next slide, please. So this picture, I think, says so much. One of my favorite quotes from this whole pandemic is someone, once said that we are all in the same storm, which is of course entirely true, but we're all in very different boats. Some of us are in yachts. Some of us are in dinghies. Some of us are in rowboats or in rubber flotation devices with not one oar, right? So the key is understanding what it is that we have in common, even though our challenges might be different, whether the challenges are different, be it substance use, be it mental health, be it anxiety, whatever it might be, the common factor in all of these challenges is isolation. So isolation is important because isolation is not just something that's in our minds. Social isolation has actually been linked to in adverse health consequences, including depression, poor sleep quality, impaired executive functions, accelerated cognitive decline, poor cardiovascular function, and impaired immunity at every stage of life. When we are isolated, we are not in our best minds. We're not making smart decisions, and we're really not able to help those around us. If you've ever heard of the expression, when the plane's going down, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, then help those around you. And isolation can be very paralyzing. So one possible solution to that is support groups. And support groups, sometimes people might think, I don't know if I really want to go. I don't know if I want to talk. I don't know if I want to share. But the reality is there's great comfort to be had when you are in a group of people who share similar concerns that you have, who are in a trusted environment. And that's family partners. That's one of the things that we do. We have a support group for moms. We have a support group for dads. We have a support group for Spanish speaking parents. We have a support group for teens from the ages of 13 to 21. So I would really, if you take nothing else away from anything I say tonight, it's that there are support groups out there, and not just from my organization, Family Support, or Family Partners of Morris and Sussex County. You can look on our website. You can go to our YouTube channel. You can email me directly. I'll see you have my contact information, but there are support groups out there from not just our group, but other groups. For instance, there's Parents Anonymous that has a support line that you can type into, and you don't even have to show your face. You can type in your question. You can type in your concern. Maybe you're afraid of what your child is doing. Are they hurting themselves? Are they smoking too much marijuana or marijuana at all? These are the kinds of things that I think parents, I sometimes think I'm in the business of starting awkward conversations, because the minute I tell somebody what it is that we do, I hear it. I hear what's going on in everybody's houses, but you know what? It's going on in everybody's home. It's not just in your home. I see my slides are back. That's fine. We've got isolation. We're good. Support groups. That's what they used to look like, right? The next slide shows what they look like now. Zoom. There we go. But I just want to tell you that if you're not comfortable with Zoom, there are so many different options. Zoom is how all of our programs operate on Zoom. We also, as I was mentioning, Parents Anonymous, or Parents Incorporated, as I think they're now known as, they have many, many different opportunities to call in, to text in. There is the New Jersey Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, that has a lot of educational programs. They do conferences, they do webinars. There is the Mental Health Association. As a matter of fact, there's the New Jersey Hope and Healing. They have, for instance, they have a yarning group, a knitting group on Tuesdays. They have after school and chat craft program for 7 to 10-year-olds. They have after school chat and craft for 13 to 18-year-olds. They have a fun zone on Fridays. There's also, I could go on and on. There's a group called the Rainbow Cafe that offers networking and support opportunities for the LGBTQ plus community and their parents. There are so many resources out there. I encourage you, if you have any concerns, if you are unsure about what's happening in your home, if you're unsure about how to support your youth, if you're unsure how to support yourself going through, quite frankly, there's some things that happen that as parents we're not prepared. I saw a quote recently on social media that said, instead of having the what to expect when expecting book, we should have had the what to expect in the first 17 years book. Because let me tell you something, a lot of it is not what we knew to expect. And that's okay. And that's normal. And that's healthy. I'm just here to tell you tonight that there are resources available. You see my email on the screen. You see we have a Facebook channel. We also have a YouTube channel, which we just recently introduced in February, which all these educational programs that we offer on every Thursday at noon, they're recorded. And you can hop on our YouTube channel, just go on and search Family Partners of Morris and Sussex County, and you can see a host of programs on. Jessica Large is one of our speakers on there about how to speak with a child that you are concerned about might be considering suicide. We have mindfulness information. We have information on what to do with domestic violence, or if you're seeking assistance on that. There are so many resources that are at your fingertips. And the good news is right now you can keep your jammies on and have your cup of tea and use your keyboard and find out lots of sources for information. So I'm hoping I've hit on most of the high points. And the bottom line is, don't be shy. You know, sometimes we're not eager to share what's happening. Sometimes people in our lives who have been a tremendous sense of support may no longer be that sense of support if we're concerned about how they may react. Maybe it's your mother. Maybe you don't want to tell them that you think that there's some harmful behaviors happening. Maybe you're embarrassed to say that you think there may be a substance issue going on. Find people you can talk to, because there's a great healing in sharing, and research has shown that you're more likely to seek assistance from the resources that are available if you share. So don't be shy and reach out if there's anything we can do to help. You know, we're all on our different journeys, but there's no reason we need to go it alone. Thanks. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I do have one question for you. Thank you so much, Holly. Let me just pull it up here. The question was, I can't find it, but it said, if as a parent and you see your child struggling, would it make them feel better, or would you recommend telling them that you had similar feelings when you were their age?
That's a really great question. And I'm gonna speak from my own personal experience that I think it depends on what's happening with the child. But I think more important than telling them about what you've experienced when you were a child is to ask them open-ended questions and then to really listen. And I see Jessica nodding her head, and she's thinking, Holly's been listening to what I've been saying, because I think the difficulty, honestly, the real difficulty with dealing with today's youth and dealing with the challenges that are going on is we're so quick to either react or show them how we're feeling. Like if they say something that scares us, it's really, really important that we are present with them and that we say, can you tell me more about that? I'm sorry, you know, I hear what you're saying, but I really want to understand more, because I think the last thing we want to do is shut off the conversation, because the minute you say, I was nervous when I was your age, I used to worry about that, they feel dismissed. And I think as parents, there's an interesting transition that happens between telling them how to do everything and then journeying with them and really being responsive and open and receptive to what it is that's going on. If that answers your question, Tiffany, like I just think it's
Yes,
really.
One more quick question,
Sure.
and that's all we have time for tonight.
Okay.
Holly, what would you recommend for people who may know someone in another family is having challenges, but they don't know what to say or what kind of help to offer?
Again, I would say even if it's like with a peer with another parent, it's really tempting to tell them what we think is wrong or what needs to be done. But I think you just need to let them know that the door is open, that the conversation is here, and that you're willing to help if things are difficult, or that you know other people. That's a really tricky wicket because the last thing we want to do is judge or point fingers. And sometimes parents either can't see, or sometimes it's too difficult to see what the challenge is. So I hope I've answered that question, and that I think it's so important to remain open and available, that I'm always here if you want to talk about something. It doesn't, don't worry about ever offending me or shocking me, that I want to be here for you in any way you need me.
Okay. Thank you so much. What an unbelievable panel of people. Team Up for Hope does have our own website. I think at the end of this panel, there'll be some contact information of our resources that anybody who has a need can click on. But as Team Up for Hope, we have our own website, which is teamupforhope.org. And all of the panelists can be contacted individually. We also take donations on our website for anybody who's feeling that they want to join with us, and that we've maybe touched a soft spot in their heart, and maybe that their heart will lead to their pocket and they would like to make a donation. You could go on our website, or you can go on our Facebook, which is facebook.com/Team Up for Hope. Even though this whole night was supposed to be geared towards younger children and teens, I'm walking away taking a lot of it that I plan on, reevaluating myself. When Ron said, when you walk in the door and say, why isn't this dishwasher unloaded? I feel like he follows me home from work. So I'm going to think twice before I attack and try to follow some of those steps. And I hope that everybody that watched can find something that personally in your own families you can do during this craziness of a time that we're all living through. And if you're lucky enough that you have no crazy in your own home, maybe you can help a friend or help out in a community, knowing there's millions of people out there that are struggling in this crisis that really just need direction, and to know that they're not alone. So thank you guys so much for your time and for all your knowledge. We so appreciate you. Karen?
We hope that we have somehow helped all of you understand what tools are available to all of us, like Tiffany mentioned, in order to assist our children and our teens in their struggles due to the pandemic. This webinar will be posted online on our Facebook page and YouTube channel for your reference. We will also be posting the contact details for our speakers should you want to reach out to them directly. Thank you to all of our panelists. We thank you all for joining us. We hope that we have helped, and enjoy spring when it finally gets here. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.